Hey guys, I just went ahead and beat Sifu. Took me about 8.5 hours, maybe a little bit closer to 9 hours playing it. And I didn't go ahead and do all of there's a bunch of secrets. There's actually multiple endings as well. So I just got my ending. I didn't go ahead and get the true ending or anything like that. And I also didn't get all the secrets or 100% it or anything like that. But it took me right around probably like 9-ish hours. Give or take 30 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my review, spoiler free. I'll break it into the pros and the cons, and then I'll give you my final verdict. And we'll start with the pros. First, the martial arts and the choreography and the animations are absolutely fantastic in this game. Honestly, second to none. I have never seen martial arts in a video game portrayed like this. But before we like really get into it, I guess I should kind of tell you guys what this game is about, because it's an interesting bag. It's sort of a mixture of a bunch of different games, and I was kind of surprised when I went into it, because I figured all I knew about it was, you know, a martial arts beat 'em up. And it's so let's get into it. It's a kind of a third-person action adventure game, and it uses the combat that's a mixture between Arkham, like the Arkham games, and Sekiro almost. And then it has splashes of Deathloop in it. I know Deathloop's kind of a new game to be referencing, but I can't really think of anything else that comes close. So as you play through, when you die in the game, you will get a death added to your death counter. And this is a number that every time you die, whatever your death counter is, that's how many years you age, up to a maximum of like in your 70s. I don't know exactly where, but in your 70s. Once you get past your 70s, you will fully exhaust all of your respawns, and then you'll die. And there's a bunch of ways to lower your death counter by fighting hard enemies, or by purchasing it with XP, which you also use to level up and get various new combo abilities. And overall, the system is very unique. I actually really enjoyed it. It's a good balance between something like Sekiro, where it lets you, you know, respawn once, maybe twice, if you've really done like all the side shit in Sekiro. This game lets you respawn a ton, especially if, you know, you are balancing that out with like fighting strong enemies and lowering your death counter, or maybe buying a lower death counter. You can really get a lot of respawns, because how it works is you only technically lose a life every 10 years you age. So you have like 5 little pieces on your medallion. You start at age 20, and then once it ticks over to 30, you will then lose that first piece. So that's essentially losing your first life. And so you can technically, if you keep resetting your death counter, you can die 10 times and then before you lose your first life. So it's pretty generous, but the game is fucking hard. The game is difficult, man. I don't even want to know how many times I died. I died a ton. But it does feel mostly like fair difficult. There was very few times where I felt like I was kind of being screwed over. Most of the times I was like, yeah, I had poor positioning, or yeah, that like they just did a move I wasn't ready for, especially those sweep attacks. They got me the entire game. Even at the end, I was still getting hit by sweep attacks. Those things were kicking my ass. But I think that the actual gameplay itself and the combat is phenomenal. I think it actually does the Arkham / Sekiro style better than both of those games. There's a few parts in Sekiro, you know, a few of the boss fights that I still think are elevated above everything else in the medium, but for the most part, I would say this game's combat is absolutely fantastic. It's super fun. There's tons of skills for you to get, and Honestly, I was probably only using about a third of the possible skills and abilities that you can do. You can utilize your environment wonderfully by kicking bottles at dudes and shit, throwing them out windows. I mean, there's so much fun stuff that you can do. The combat is just a joy. And the sound design goes hand in hand with the combat. It is great. The voice acting is all right. I think that the main character is voice acted pretty well. I think Yang, who's the big bad, he's voice acted pretty well. But everyone else is kind of meh, including the little peons that you're kicking their ass. But the actual sound design of the hits, dude, it sounds just like you're watching a martial arts movie. And this game has some wonderful references to Kill Bill, Old Boy, Daredevil, if you're, you know, if you didn't see the original hallway fight scene in Old Boy back in the day, then you might know it from Daredevil. It has some wonderful, like, callbacks to some classic, really, really great action scenes, some callbacks to some wonderful martial arts moves as well. And the sound is great. The combat is phenomenal. And the level design is quite varied. I actually really enjoyed the level design. They got a club that you go to. They have a dojo. They have a street brawl. They have all sorts of basically whatever you could think of from a martial arts movie. They have it. And I really enjoyed all of the levels in the game. Now, something that's a little interesting about the gameplay is the death loop type of mechanic, because like I touched on, it has a little bit in common with Deathloop, where you will play your levels and then say in level 3, you'll get a key card that opens a door in level 1. So it actually does incentivize you to go back and play level 1, and as you get better at the game, you naturally want to go back anyway, because your lowest age that you beat the level at is what carries on to the next level. And obviously, you know, you want to be going into every level at the lowest age possible so you can die as many times as possible. So it has this really satisfying loop where, you know, you're on the second level and you're like, you know, I don't feel like I have enough lives. Let's go back. Let's do the first level again. And let's try and not die at all and beat the level, you know, at age 20. It's very doable, but you have to be very good. I mean, even by the end, I couldn't go back and do the first level entirely death-free. I think the best I did was, like, I died once. So I'm not a pro gamer, apparently, but it does have a very satisfying loop to it. And I think that does add to replayability in a sense. But at the end of the day, there's not the most to replay after you've beaten the game unless you want to go for the other endings. But that replayability and that death loop aspect of it, of like, oh, I got this key and this key goes to level 2 and now I can get a secret in level 2, or oh, I could talk to this guy and become friends with him, and then in level, you know, 3 or 4 there's a computer that needs hacked, and then I could go back to that level and I could talk to that guy and then he can help me hack it in level 4 or whatever. It's a really cool little aspect. Another highlight of the game for me is the boss fights. That's really where the game shines, in my opinion. Sure, it's fun to walk into a club, very similar to John Wick, and just start beating the shit out of everyone in sight, man, woman. Even if a child walks up, you're punting that kid across the room into a dude's face and full combo in it, man. There's tons of fun to do that, but at the end of the day, I think the game really, really shines in the boss fights. They're quite varied. I think only one of the boss fights was bad, in my opinion, and that was, I think, the 4th boss, this old lady. I thought that boss fight was kind of lame, but other than her, the other 4 bosses are absolutely phenomenal, especially the final boss. It's exactly what you want in one of these types of games. And honestly, those are all the pros. I think it's really fun. Oh, the music, if you want to talk about the music, it's quite good. I have no issues with it. I thought it was pretty decent. Not something I'm going to be listening to after I beat the game, but pretty good. So let's get into the cons, which honestly, there's not a lot of. I think the main con that we have to talk about is the price. It's a $40 title, man. It's a $40 title, average completion sitting around 10 hours, and sure, you can replay it you know, you could go for the other endings, like I said. You could try and play the entire game and get through it all at age 20, not dying at all. You absolutely can do those things. Me, I don't really see a drive to do that, personally. And so as a result, I'm going to say the game is a little bit overpriced, dude. And I do have to evaluate it at the $40 price tag, but I will also give you guys the evaluation for a cheaper, similar to what I did with Ghost Runner, right? I played Ghost Runner. I was like, this game is really, really good, but it's way too short for the asking price. And so I gave 2 separate review scores, you know, one for the game now, and then one for if you can get it on sale at this price, right? So I'll do the same thing with this game. But in terms of cons, there's really not a lot. Sometimes I did feel that I should have dodged, like a dodge should have came out and it didn't. And, you know, that kind of just happens with these games. I think the number one complaint that I have with the game is the camera. I could probably even show you. This game has no silhouetting or anything like that if you've ever played Monster Hunter. So if you get your camera close to a wall at all, it's looking like this. It is zoomed in. You know, if you've ever played Monster Hunter, then you'll know that the camera will actually go through. It'll maintain this distance and it'll go through the wall, but you'll be able to see through the wall. So that way, you know, it's not hampering your viewing and you can still see everything. This game doesn't have that at all. And that got me killed many, many times because it also happens on people. And a lot of the times in the game, bad guys, they're going to surround you. And if there's a guy right where you want your camera, it's going to just fucking zoom into your dude and you're not going to be able to see anything. Next thing you know, you're dead because you died really fast in this game in just a couple hits. So that was kind of frustrating. I think by far that's the biggest problem. I don't know why in 2022 they still don't have silhouetting and you know, all of that in place in third-person games. I complained about it in Sekiro. I've complained about it, honestly, like all the Souls games. It was really, really bad in Sekiro, though. It's like you have examples like Monster Hunter that do it. There's no reason at all for a game like this to not have it in 2022. So that could definitely be annoying. And also, my only other complaint that I have is that I do feel that the game does a shitty job in the tutorial. For the longest time, I thought that one of these moves called Avoid, I thought that was specifically just for grabs, because in the tutorial it says if you're gonna get grabbed, do this, right? And it does show you that you can, you know, dodge high and dodge low, but it never actually, like, tells you, explains to you what situations you'll want to use Avoid in versus parrying or blocking or just dodging, right? And as a result, I could not beat the second boss. I couldn't fucking beat him. I died a bunch of times to him. Then I look it up and I see this dude just using this thing called Avoid and not getting hit at all. I go, what the fuck is Avoid? Like, I didn't even know what it was. And then the first time I fight him, knowing what Avoid is, I first try it. It's like, it's kind of, it's not good game design when there's shit that the player does not understand that should be explained. You know, this isn't Dark Souls, man, where you're like, oh, I love my ambiguity. Nah, man, explain the shit, okay? I don't even like it in Dark Souls. I think they should explain stuff in Dark Souls. I've never been for that. Explain it, man. But, also, another thing, they never explained, sometimes enemies will attack you, and it'll be they'll have like a glowing fist or something. Your guess is as good as mine as to what that means. I think you're supposed to avoid it. I don't know, but you can also block it, so it's not like it's an unblockable. I genuinely have no idea. You can also parry it, so I don't know. I genuinely have no idea what that is still, because it never explained it to me. I just figured, okay, well, I guess this technique seems to work when their hands are glowing, and so I guess I'll do that. I could be doing it all wrong. I have no idea. That's the problem. You need to have an in-depth tutorial for a game like this with tons of mechanics, because it's bad enough that, you know, there's 20 extra skills to unlock, on top of, you know, your combos that you already start the game with. That's a lot to learn already for the player. You need to at least explain the basics, right? So that's kind of my only complaints about it, is the camera and kind of a shitty tutorial and the price. For me, I don't think this game is worth $40. Evaluating it though, giving it a score at $40, I'd say it's a 7 out of 10 for me. I think it's a good game, right? For me, 5 is average, 6 is above average, 7 is good. I think it's a good game. The combat is really, really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing it. I just don't really think it's worth $40. I think it's a little bit of a stretch. But if this game is like, I know it's on PS5. If it's a disc game, you know, you could totally just rent it or buy it and then play it and then sell it. You could totally do that. And that's what I would recommend. But assuming the game, you know, when it eventually goes on sale, it's like $15. I'm sure it'll happen on Epic Game Store any day now because their sales are insane. If you could get this game at 15 or 20 bucks, I think it's super worth. I would give it, honestly, probably like a 9 out of 10 if you could get this for 20 bucks or 15 bucks. I think that's a much more reasonable price tag for like a 8 to 10 hour game with not a lot of replayability, unless you are one of those people that's like, I want to literally become Ultra Instinct Goku. I just want to go through fucking blindfolded, like those dudes, you know, that play like Through the Fire and Flames behind their head, blindfolded. I want to do that. I just want to go through and I just want to bitch slap every single character, go through, not even get hit, master the combat. If you're that type of person, man, go for it. You know, I know some people are like that. People are like that with Sekiro as well. I'm not that type of guy, and the average person isn't that type of guy, so I'm going to evaluate it for the average person, right? So I think $15, $20, this game's an absolute steal. 9 out of 10 at that price range. It's phenomenal. Amazing. That's what my 9 is. An 8 is great. A 9 is amazing. Amazing. I think it's an amazing game for 20 bucks, but for 40, I think it's good. It's good. It's enjoyable. I'd recommend it to people. But I'd recommend a sale, honestly. It's a bit short. And I have a feeling I'll be saying that about the next game I review as well, Shadow Warrior 3, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So thank you everybody for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day. See all of you in the next video. Or Jim Maroney. Bye-bye.